I'm Will Barnard. This is my family farm. I'm a second generation farmer, so my parents set this up. They were research scientists and stepped off that to become farmers. Built a fairly successful dairy farm that I grew up on. I always swore I never wanted to be a farmer. It looked pretty hard work, fairly thankless and badly paid. So I swore I wouldn't do that. Wandered off and did some other things in the world, but then grow up a bit and look around and think, actually, that's a pretty spectacular way to make a living if you can. I can almost pinpoint the moment I thought it was a good idea to come back. I was sat in the kitchen of a neighbour's farm, and their eight-year-old son came out proudly clutching a tooling catalogue and pronounced, "We're going to buy a new windy gun." I thought, if an 8-year-old can carry that much energy and enthusiasm for an actual task or skill, that's probably a good thing. And you start looking around and you think, the opportunities that farms give young people to stretch themselves and grow and learn tasks and resiliency, and that opportunity is almost unique in the world. And I thought, I have a chance to give that to my children. I'd like to give that a shot. The opportunity to leave things better than you acquired them seems to be foundational in almost all farmers' hearts. That it's the old cliche that we're custodians, not owners. And I don't know a farmer that doesn't think that way. It's not your asset. It's the family's, society's asset. You'll happen to be lucky enough to be looking after it now. But very few aspire to actually leave it in a worse state and extract money. There was a selfishness in that I wanted my children to have the comfortable life I had growing up. And it struck me that the way the industry was being pushed made it somewhat fragile. And I was worried that actually there wouldn't be the opportunities I had unless we started to think more holistically about the way the landscape is run and managed. To me, with a background in engineering, sustainable meant to me, will it still be here in 100, 200, 300 years' time? And there were elements of contemporary farming that I could see were changing year on year for the worse. Having moved away and coming back, I realised that actually this landscape is exceptional in its own way. It's unusual in that the combination of high ground and floodplain has created a really interesting dynamic between the two. Crops on the floodplain are radically different to the crops up on the hills. The farms tend to be based on the hills, and the low-lying land tends to be summer grazing. There are elements of farming here that aren't radically different to what they were 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It's extensive grazing, very low-lying fields, relatively poor under drainage in lots of areas, so it hangs very wet in winter. You can't really do much in it. I'm told that Somerset means land of the summer people because traditionally the floodplains, the Somerset levels and moors, you couldn't do anything with in winter. That lowland ag peat that we're so dependent on is actually some of the most emissive land and one of the largest sources of emissions for agriculture. It's estimates vary, but it's up to 6 to 7% of the UK total emissions comes from that farmed peat. Not the equipment on it, the soils. Peat is a fundamentally aqueous medium. It's a rich mix of undecomposed plant matter that's built up over hundreds and thousands of years. As water tables are high, the plants die and fall in to that water, and then the anaerobic and acidic conditions preserve that plant matter. So in some areas on the levels of moors, it's 9-10 meters deep. But in my head, I think of it as coal that hasn't been smushed and compacted. So it's all plant material. It is literally 100% organic matter, preserved because of the high water tables in which they were formed. As soon as you drain those water tables, it will be the same as heaping peat up on your garden patio. It blows away, it decomposes, it's gone. And in a way, we're lucky with the fens in that we have a window into what that looks like over the course of a generation. There are areas of the fens now that have sunk 3-4 meters. That's 3 or 4 meters of organic matter that's become atmospheric CO2. It's the analogy I think is probably most effective is if you've ever had a pot plant that's dried out completely with peat soil, you pour the water on the top and it just runs off. I'm probably not the only one who's neglected my pot plants to that extent, but it becomes hydrophobic. I got really excited by Adopt because it was an innovation-focused funding stream that required the input of farmers. Farmers are incredibly innovative. There's constantly problem solving. So this gave us an opportunity to do that kind of consolidated coal-face problem solving that farmers are used to working with in slightly more rarefied R&D space. looked at whether you could use aggregate to gap fill a mould drain system. So mould drain in aggregate, that would probably work. But again, it didn't feel very like a very great idea to start inserting stone into 100% organic medium. We came up with the idea of mould draining in charcoal conduits underground, which has the double benefit of sequestering the carbon in that charcoal. It stabilises it, so all the carbon is then effectively stored long term in this wonderful preserving medium. Bits of wood get dug up that are thousands of years old and still look fresh. So charcoal will most definitely be stable down there, and it will allow the water to move both ways through the peat.
So the reason I think it needs an element of research and R&D time is, and the reason it's BioFlow Phase 2 is because BioFlow Phase 1 was, does it even vaguely work? Does water move through charcoal at all underground? We ticked the box of proof of concept, so it fundamentally the idea works. Then all those trees are absorbing and building these great forests. At some point they're going to reach climax vegetation state. What on earth do you do with those forests? Well, wouldn't it be great if we could turn them into charcoal, sow them into our soils to improve drainage, and grow more trees and go round and round and round the loop? I'm constantly surprised at how much farmers downplay their own skills. Often they don't perceive themselves to be particularly skilled people. The reality is they are highly skilled in a wide variety of sectors, but they often don't rub shoulders with other industries to see you have to be a problem solver. You have to be independent, self-sufficient. If you're out in the field and something breaks, you need to work out how to get yourself back. It's hardwired into the industry. We are doers. Innovation feels like a very kind of distant, remote, white coat, lab-based concept, but it's not. It's about new ideas, new applications of existing technology. I'm hoping through the support through the Adopt Support Hub and the farmer facilitators will help farmers step more confidently into that innovation space. Will we solve this? It's not a thing to be solved. It's an ongoing journey. And we've got this far. There's no reason to think that we won't make it to the next step, and that our children will deal with another set of problems and they'll roll their eyes at us saying, why on earth did you do that? But they themselves will pick it up and deal with it and deal with it and deal with it. It's what farmers do. It's what we've always done.